Our first step is to draw a simple outline of our scene. It's a corner of a bedroom with a bedside light on a bedside table with some drapes from a four-poster bed next to it, a few artworks on the wall, and the back of a sofa in the front. It's a very simple outline, very quickly done, well under 10 minutes, so it's not particularly exact, but it's going to be the tone that brings this scene to life, not at all the line work. And with the lines in place, it's just a case of putting the tape to contain the tone. Now we're at the fun part, applying the tone that will create the interior light effects of this scene. Careful observation always goes ahead of putting any marks on paper. So looking at our reference, what do we see? Well, we have a bedside light here, and the brightest section of this whole scene is just here at the top of the light. And the next brightest section is where the most light is reflected off the light coloured walls. And that occurs just below this picture and reflected off the polished surface of the table and particularly off the end of the bed here. Now we also want to look to see where the strongest shadows are. Now these draperies on what is in fact a four-poster bed in a castle in Scotland are in shade, and there's also shade here on this fabric at the back of the bed. This pillow is largely in light. We have some very dark local colour here. This is the colour of the painting. I often note the value of printing off a black and white copy of our reference. It does for us the work of translating the various tones of local colour into black and white so that we can see their relative values more exactly, more easily. And here we have it here. As always, our reference is just a suggestion. It's important that we feel free to adjust our final work for what we think will look best, because nobody's going to be comparing it to this. I get my colour chart, which has my choices. At the start, I'm going to keep 5 as my darkest, but I expect I will use 6 after that. Now, obviously, white is my lightest colour, and 0 is my next one. So I need to use 0 for all the parts where I have the lightest light. And I'm going to use 0 and start with the wall behind, because that's where the most delicacy is called for. And because I have to make a choice between either white paper or 0, N0, I think that will give me the most flexibility then. So what I particularly need to pay attention to is where I don't want any tone at all. It's going to be the top part of this lamp. So I'm going to leave this whole lampshade unmarked at this point. There is a section down here at the base of the lamp, and there is this section across here that continues into this gap between the fabrics. It can be useful to have a scrap of paper which is the same paper that we actually draw on, because different papers receive the ink differently and the same pen can look quite different on different papers. And so this is going to be my choice. Now I do want to get quite a diffuse line here. I don't want a straight line. So while I've actually drawn a pencil line in, I don't want to stop on that line. I want to feather. And I want to do all of these lines with a quick touch because I'm trying to get a nice gradated effect. Now I'm using the brush end of my Copic sketch markers, N0, the lightest in the neutral grey colour. The important thing to remember is that the longer the tip of the brush is in contact with the paper, the more ink will be transferred, and therefore the darker the effect is going to be. It's important to touch as quickly and sparingly as we can. The light from this lamp is also not reaching evenly up the wall, so I need to come down from the top as well. This will do for now. My next possible shade is N1. Now here's my N0. So this is the difference now I get with tone. And I think I'm going to use this to put in all the tone on the fabric that's in shade. And then I can make some darker adjustments to it later. That's actually looking a bit light for me even now. So I'm going to jump to N2. It is good to try and establish some very dark areas early on. And so the darkest areas I've got, so I'm using N5 here. I need to make sure I preserve the light reflections here. I'm going to use an N3 now. It's the relative values that matter rather than what they actually are. I want to get these picture frames sorted next. I'm going to try N4 for this one here. I'm thinking I'll use it at this point for the painting rather than the frame on this side. Do need to at least anchor this corner a little more darkly. I need to add some tone to the rest of this painting here. I don't want any of it to be white because none of it is as bright as the light that we have down here. So this is a 1. I'm going to use a 4 again for these darkest areas of local colour in the painting, and then I'll use a 2 for these bits. I still feel this is a bit light. I'm happier with that. I just want to adjust the wall a little bit now that I've got more of this done. Slightly darker line here because that makes the light look lighter. Alright, I'm going to just put a bit more shade on this curtain. And now I'm going to work at this pattern. I'll start with presuming N4 will be the darkest, but I'll probably end up putting some N5 in the darkest spots. Lines here for this floral decoration were very gestural anyway, and so I'm not trying to go inside those because I want to keep a very loose effect here. What we're trying to do is put contrasting tones next to each other because that creates a stronger effect. I deliberately didn't put this water jar on because I didn't want to have to fuss with that, and I want to keep it darker down here. I'll start with 3. Now we've got the bed. I haven't put my line here in the best spot. Now I am thinking that I need to bring this shadow on the wall down further because the light doesn't reach up as strongly as far as I've drawn it. So I'll go back to my 0. And where I have tape, I can actually start on the tape, which gives me a much smoother run onto the paper and avoids this effect where if we let the sketch marker rest even for a second too long in the one spot, we can get a much greater deposit of ink than we want. And I like that better. It gives more of a sense of the glow of the lamp in this spot. Now the thing I'm wondering about is this surface here of the desk. At the moment, I think it looks quite nice and reflective as is. But equally, to have the end of the table darker against this wall here, I think will also look quite effective. So I think I'm going to try and give a go at putting some tone onto it. I'm going to be really light actually under the lamp. I think I want a 2 to be the darkest that I have, but I'll just see, it might be a 3. And I think that was the right choice. It does help create more of a glow around the lamp. Is there anything more that really needs to be done here? I'm not so sure about increasing the darkness of the shade on these hanging fabrics here. Certainly in terms of my reference photo, they're not as dark. So I think I'm going to give it a go, because that's the whole point of this, is to learn, and I may as well learn as well as you. So let's see how it compares with how it is now with increasing the darkness on these drapes, which I think means is I need to put a 3 on most of the shade and a 4 in other parts. Possibly I need to darken the pillow now to match. 2 now down here. Yep, I think that works better. And so now my question is, do I want to push for the 6 anywhere? I might just use it in a few splashes on the patterning to see how that goes. It certainly shows me it is quite a lot darker. I think I will use the 6 just here on this polished furniture here and under this. And again, those stronger tones down there do help set off the light more. And there we have it. The final thing to do is simply to remove the tape. And so now it's time to get rid of our reference photo and have a look at our artwork, and to ask ourselves, does this create a pleasant light effect? And of course, the secret in our thinking when we're drawing light is that we don't draw light at all. We let the paper be the light. What we draw is the shade and the shadows, as well as the local colour, but it is exactly the same as doing exterior scenes where the sun is the light source. It's just that the sun produces so much more light. Usually there is a lot less tone work to have to do, and it's often not quite as subtle. Sketch markers give us the chance to get some really lovely effects of interior light, and it's well worth trying. Hi, I'm Stephen Travers. Interior scenes somehow feel very different to outside ones. It seems that they're so much more complicated to draw and certainly to apply tone to, when really the principles are exactly the same. There's nothing to be afraid of, and we can get some really dramatic effects using whatever medium we prefer. I have found sketch markers to be a great tool for creating the enormous range of effects that we find in interior lighting, whether it's a little bedside table, as in this case, or an enormous chandelier in a grand building. I hope watching me talk through this demonstration has encouraged you to give it a go if you've never drawn an interior scene, using tone to create the effect of light and dark. It's a lot of fun, and that's what we want to make sure we do. Have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.